Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, good to have some of you with us. I see that some of you are joining. Pavlord, Caricature, right? Some of you we know, some of you are students, right? Anyway, if you can hear me, that's great. We're going to kind of start slow a little, so we give people some time to join in. To give a bit of a background, for today's session for the DID live chat, because it's a Saturday, and since it's a Saturday, I'm not in school. But, well, let's make the most of it because I happen to be in my office, which is maybe something a bit different from all the chats so far. Like in our team, in the teaching staff, there are a few teachers who actively practice in industry. I would say for myself, heavily so. And I run a design agency as well. And through that, we hope to try to bring more real type of true to life education to our DID students. And so since today happens to be not a school day and I'm in office, I will take this chance to just do a walkabout even. And I think it may be a good idea. You can start to submit questions in, but I will just start off more with showing you what some typical pathways of career might be like for industrial designers. Okay? So yeah, I see a few of you joining. I'm going to just do a quick pan around behind me, which is a bit of the workspace in what I would say it's rather typical design agency, right? So if you work in industrial design, eventually, right, maybe you might work in places like that. We run a 25-man team practice over here where we do a range of work, and range of work meaning that from product design to interaction design to marketing activations to electronics and even programming apps. So industrial design really leads you to a large range of possibilities because as designers you thrive by being able to use the newest things, and through the newest things you get new opportunities to create solutions for people. So our team, to be honest, I mean none of them are here today because it's a Saturday, but our team is, I would say, made up of out of a 25-man team, 3/4 of the people are from NUS DID in the past, right? All my co-founders are also NUS DID, and all three of us, we teach at NUS. For myself, more on a full-time capacity, whereas for the other two, more on a part-time capacity. So, yeah, so just a snapshot here. I welcome questions. If you don't have questions, I will just walk about a little bit, show you a bit of what goes on in like a design studio. So that is quite a natural translation of where your industrial design education in DID may take you, even though there are other pathways. And today, I think if you see on the call, I think we have Cheryl who might join us. Cheryl, are you here? Can you wave if you're here? Cheryl Ho, are you here? Let's see. Is that you? Yep. Anyway, we have some alumni who will join us. They've not graduated too long ago, like a couple of years. So she's going to join us here for a quick one. Cheryl's with DBS now. If I'm up to date with her latest, so that's another kind of. Hey Cheryl. Yeah. Hey, you're with DBS now, right?
Yes, me and Kate both.
Okay. So anyway, that's a different kind of pathway where you kind of go into innovation teams, right? You may not be necessarily engaged with a lot of physical products. You may be dealing with a lot more of digital stuff, services, spaces. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl.
Yeah, so like for me and Kate who might join, we're currently with DBS's design team. So they have a centralized design team now where they're actually putting a lot of focus on more, I mean, their digital services, your apps and stuff, and your not so much. This team doesn't focus so much on the physical space, but I mean, they do look at let's say customer experience in the branches as well. Yeah. So
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
more
So
so digital.
so I guess for DID graduates who end up say working in innovation teams in banks, they are the ones who end up bringing you your innovations in your app. You know, what's the little considerate feature that is inside a DBS app, for example, right? These are the things that come from insights, from problems that people face, and then the designers figure out a way using the latest tech and tapping on the newest possibilities with, say, your phones, right, to deliver such benefits to people, right? Cheryl, I'm gonna close your window first. Maybe you can join me later because I will do a little walkabout. Huh?
But
Yeah. Anyway, we'll do a little walkabout to give you a snapshot since we're here anyway. Anyway, I'm going to just turn my screen around. Okay, so this is typical of industrial design, right? In a studio space like that, you work with a team of fellow designers, engineers, software developers, communicators, and then you know the typical drill, right? Some of you in school may have gone through things like design thinking and stuff. And over here, we do a lot of drawing, but what I would say more essentially, we do a lot of ideas and always looking at it from the perspective of benefiting people. And as a snapshot, I mean, all of this is a bit unrehearsed, but just to give you a snapshot, you know, the works that we do or the works that you will get to do as industrial designers range from things like Internet of Things objects, smart wearables, app interfaces, medical devices, right? All kinds of things, including, yeah, what might be a bit pertinent now, you know, like things like the face mask for like the haze or for infection. There are other things that you could see in our space that is typical of industrial design. I think maybe just to show you some processes here that are ongoing. We have here what are typical foam mock-ups that are very quick to build, but they give you a quick sense of how things look and feel like. They give you a quick sense of exploration of functions, right? If you see over here, there's some mechanisms that are being proposed, right? In the work that the team is kind of doing. I mean, these are the simpler ones. I'll show you a bit more of the interesting ones later. But yeah, things like that, projects start like that. You know, we start off with figuring out what people need. And I think in school, you do the same. At work, you do the same. And I would say that that's one of those things that is pretty interesting about industrial design, that you don't have this segregation between what school or the theoretical practice is like compared to what the actual industry practice is like. So what you've seen over there early on, right? Some of these early foam mock-ups that allow us to study things like how things work, how shapes and sizes are somewhat like, has become something like this. And it's been already launched on the market, right? What you see here, if I can, yeah, pull it up closer. This is an example of, this is the kind of a baby bottle dishwasher thingy, which doesn't exist yet, but that's where these things begin, right? They and I think some things here allude to home devices like smart coffee machines, and starting from very low fidelity mockups that are quick like that, you get to do a lot of higher fidelity solutions, like when you use a 3D printer, like over here in our office, right? Things like this, you know, where, I have only one hand to hold, but these are really fun to do sometimes. You know, it goes in between the line of engineering and industrial design, where, let me just try to use one hand to do this, right? What you see here is some kind of mechanism which does a motion like that. It's meant to do, I mean, it's part of the internals, but it's meant to do things like eject capsules and stuff. But I mean, there are many ways to do it, and sometimes designers are tasked with the exploration to think of how do you make a solution that maybe, just maybe engineers are less likely to propose because it's a little bit, maybe sometimes a bit initially inefficient, right? But because design is one of those kind of fields whereby we are probing for the latest possibilities. We're probing the world for, hey, what's this new thing that you have not thought of yet? So we do try to do things that are a little bit out there that the typical disciplines that try to optimize things for reliability don't do. And that's precisely, how, I'm going to switch the camera over again, hold on. How we get to projects like, let me dig my bag, huh? Sorry, I'm just walking around here a little bit. Yeah, let me pull something out. Toys. All right. Anyway, yeah, I see questions coming, so I will dig my bag while I see questions, right? Okay, let's see what's the first question that has come in. How do I turn this on? Can you describe how do you get your projects at start? Who are your clients? Or okay, yeah, I can describe. Let's do the two questions. Okay, let me do the one that is more overview, right? Right. You see the question here, which is, can you describe ID in one sentence in layman terms? Yes, I do. That's a bit of a difficult task, but ID or industrial design, even though the name sounds a little bit like you're designing factories, which was what everyone has a misconception of, even myself when I first encountered it more than 15, 16 years ago, right? It isn't exactly industrial design as in like factory things, right? But it started off with this idea that industrial meant production that was serialized, meaning made in multiples, and made for industry, meaning made for distribution to people to use, right? So that's what it really meant. But over the time, as it being a creative field, right, you have to work with all kinds of new tech, new possibilities, new thinking, even thinking around how do you engage people better in this day and age, right? In this kind of culture, how do you engage people better? So at the end of the day, design is constantly evolving, and it's one of those fields whereby, if we were to describe one sentence, it basically means organizing the best of your resources, which is constantly changing anyway, for the maximum benefit of human beings, right? So I think if you like people, if you like to know how people work, how people live, how people use things, how people are delighted by their experiences, whether at a bank or whether using a kitchen tool or whether using a smart phone, right? Then industrial design is kind of the domain for you, right? It integrates between the arts, the sciences. So you need to know physics. You need to know, I mean, you don't really have to know physics in detail, but you need to have some good level of engineering appreciation, some good level of aesthetic and artistic sensibility, right? But I think more important than that is the ability to understand people and bring the things, the domains, the fields together to serve people. So let me see. Yeah. Anyway, we were talking earlier on about mechanisms that are a little bit sometimes interesting or different, like that. And I'll just show you one of the projects that is my personal favorite. It's one that I did maybe about 10 years or more than 10 years ago, right? Some of you may have seen this mouse-like thing, which is a mouse. Actually, it's an art mouse. Basically, it's a project that I've done more than 10 years ago. But the question was similar, meaning that how do you get a designer to question mechanisms so that they do these things, they bend and then it stays rigid for your use, right? This is something a little bit atypical of engineering challenges, but and designers have a different way to see such challenges. And yeah, so here's just one. It's my favorite project. Well, it demonstrates design's ability to think slightly beyond the typical pathways, and then it resulted in a product that has been in production for more than 10 years already, and new versions of the mouse are still coming up using the same kind of mechanism, right? Okay, so that's to answer the question of ID in one sentence, but it isn't one sentence, right? Now let's have let's see if there's some other questions, huh? I see things like, how is industrial design different product design? Well, actually, it's this question we get almost every year, and so we ask ourselves this question a lot. I think depending on how you define it or choose to define the two terms, they can be similar or dissimilar, right? In the past, there were people who tried to pull a distinction between product design to say that it deals just with products and it doesn't deal so much with systems and the complexity of how people use things in relation to the context or how things are made in relation to how a business needs to survive. Right? Industrial design seems to expand a little bit more on that to incorporate like more considered attempts at production and making it a business. But to be very honest, both terms have been evolving, and I think they are, to me, synonymous, right? If you work in design, in fact, I would say, do you even need to differentiate industrial design or product design with the word design, right? When we work, if you look at the kind of things that we do, right? Yes, it may have started from products like that, physical objects that are mini robots that run around with your dog. It may have started with projects like that, which are face masks for people, but it has also moved digital, right? And when you go into the digital space, you start to have to deal with things like graphics, illustrations, you deal with interactions. So really, is there a delineation between these kind of things that we say are in the field of design? I'm not so sure if it's exactly that meaningful to do this differentiation. And therefore, in DID, you will see that indeed, what happens is we have 10 to 14 different specializations, which in the end, touches on different things. And yeah, I think the term trying to pinpoint exactly industrial design or product design and whether they are different becomes less meaningful. Hopefully that's helpful for Karen Zaino, who just asked this question. Yeah, so I'm going to move on. Okay, let's see. Caricature asks, does Stark do any experiments or interesting projects that don't necessarily bring profit? Yes, let me show you some things. To do that, let me see, what should I do? Well, I walk to our other office. Just give me a while. Yeah, just give me a little bit. Just walk with me. I will run so that we will not be too slow. Okay. So this is our other unit over here. Again, there's nobody working here today. So this is where we mainly hold our meetings. But let's go to this room. Yeah, where we can see some things. Stark sometimes does things like this. And I think in industrial design, you also work on sometimes projects that are for not necessarily for business gain, right? Yeah, if you take a look at this series of clips, right? This is actually a rather interesting project. That it's not the clips that is interesting, but we had a bunch of young children who were in primary school that were innovating some way to help secure elderly's walking cane to the edge of the table. And they started off with a concept that was very similar to a clothes peg like that, right? And for them, what we did was mainly just help them along. It's not a project for commercial gain, but to find a way to make it such that it's producible and fit around a cane beautifully, right? And at the same time, increase the kind of different types of grip surface for different thicknesses of tables, right? And this, when attached to a cane, allows the cane to attach nicely to the edge of the tables, so that when elderly rest their walking stick at like where they're dining, which is what they always do, right? It doesn't slide off that easily and require them to pick it up. Well, this may seem like a very small thing, but you would be surprised, maybe you're not, right, to realize that many of the falls that are very serious for elderly come from trying to pick up canes. So this is an interesting one to talk about, just because if you do a search this year on the internet, just do a Google search for Singaporean of the Year, right? It goes to these two kids who did this cane, right? And they were awarded Singapore of the Year, and this is our kind of involvement with them when they came to us. Yeah, so not all projects are necessary for commercial gain. Sometimes we do things really just because they have to be done. I think I'm giving you a bit of a background here with like commercial practice, but honestly, in DID as a school, such projects exist too. We collaborate with the charitable organizations. We collaborate with organizations that use try to provide like work for the disabled, right? To design things for them to build. There are lots of things like that that goes on. And I think as a designer, sometimes you might find that because you have the kind of capability and thinking possible to effect such change and to propose new things that hasn't been thought of yet for such areas, you could be rather motivated to do something about it. Okay, so hopefully that answers this question. Do we do interesting experiments? I will add on to this question a little later, but just to give you a little peek, right? The project's process kind of like this, even for, in this case, when we developed the Air Plus Smart Mask, this was done, interestingly, with many NUS involvement, meaning that when we did this, and you might have seen this in the stores a lot, the project involved start as a team for industrial design, and then involved another NUS professor who was doing airflow simulations. So how do you kind of deal with the heat and exhalation in the face, at your face when you wear a mask? And it was very much, I would say half the team is a bit like an NUS project. And of course, there's another big half, which is the actual client and collaborator themselves, who are the key inventors of the technology. And that's ST Engineering, or rather owned by the subsidiary Inner Sparks now, right? This project. But yeah, so that's kind of a classic project that's industrial design, where you deal with the complexity of science, the complexity of faces. How do you get masks to sit well on faces that are young, children face? That the ergonomics are totally different from industrial masks and harder to solve. And then also solve a lot of problems like how do you get the masks, for example, to when in a children's face, the mask has to be smaller. It means that the amount of mask material is less, and that just means that it's harder to breathe through because it's much more stuffy. So how do you deal with all these challenges and make such a project happen would be, and then of course at the end of the day, when you're serving the human being, it still needs to look nice and not like a object that's inconvenient to use or ugly to, when you wear it, looks like a bad guy, That's the kind of challenge that industrial designers face, right? To integrate everything, engineering to science to arts to human behavior to hygiene to medical. And I think that's why it's so interesting, at least for me, right? That I'm constantly curious every day with this kind of work that we do. Okay, so just sharing, I think these things are not so secretive, so anyway I can share. But our process here is really much like what you see in creative practices. A lot of post-its, a lot of drawings, a lot of discussions. That's why our spaces are very collaborative generally. And I'm going to jump back to the other side, and I'll come back to this question again later on with another little something to share. Okay, I see more questions coming in, so let's see what do we answer next. Let's see. Yeah. It's actually pretty fun to do a live call from the office. Okay, we have questions here. Just quick ones. I just answer the quick ones. Yeah, like Like, is it difficult to get clients in industrial design industry? No, if you are good, right? And I think there is something that I would want to address somewhat with many of you having concerns of design industry as whether it is a plausible industry to work in the long run. And I would say many students every year somewhat frightened by what they hear from the statistics with regards to say like how many percent are employed full-time, what's the starting salary like. Well, just to clear it up once and for all, in fact, actually we have been a bit irritated with this thing because it doesn't really paint an accurate picture. The industrial designers are a certain kind of breed of students. When they graduate, they want to do quite some interesting things. One of the things that they want to do typically is they want to go for internships, because design is a bit like that. If you can work under a good mentor for even like a half a year period or 3 months, sometimes even, your growth suddenly jumps a lot, right? And you learn so much more than you can just going to a high-paying regular job. So we have a lot of our graduates starting, in places which take them on as an apprentice, and this is by choice, even though they're offered good paying positions, right, elsewhere. And so that significantly suppresses the way salaries are. And to be candid about this, I graduated I graduated 13, 14 years ago, right? My first job, I was only paid $1,000 a month, right? But, that was by choice, right? And because of such work that I took up to do, I grew so much more than, I would say, others who may have tried a slightly safer path that, would give more regular salary at the start. I took a bit more risk. And then, there's also many people in our graduate cohort that love to do startups or love to, start their own business. We have so many businesses from this school that has, where the founders are from this business, from DID, right? Keith Cafe, right? Some of other design agencies or even retailers like Super Mama, right? We have many who choose the entrepreneurial path. And if you go to entrepreneurial path, you're not going to be having a stable job, right? At least not for the first year or two, right? And then you'll pay yourself the last because you are the founder. So we see the design industry as a place where if you stay in it for a little bit more time, your salaries catch up very fast with the rest. And so don't be frightened by this, what seemed like an apparent lack of an industry, right? If you look around and see what the government is saying with regards to how we all need to be practicing design and how, and if you just observe closely who is hiring for design, you look at the government building a design agency, like almost like design tech agency, GovTech. You start to see banks hiring big teams of designers. You see hospitals bringing designers, and many of our graduates, after a few years of working in such places. So I think you may be, or rather, a lot of people are unnecessarily over frightened by these statistics, which just paints to you the picture of what happens in the first 3 months, of graduating. So Douglas, I know I don't answer your question directly, and our clients have to get into the industry design agency. Same answer. I think if you do a good job, I don't think you have a problem with that, right? And of course if you price it correctly, okay. We do a lot of work for a lot of clients. I know someone else has asked questions about who are our clients, right? I can do a little bit of a quick, we have with here a kind of smart device. NUH was the client. We have here an application here, which is BMW was the client. We do a lot of work for Nikon, Samsung. We do a lot of work for transition lenses. We do a lot of work for P&G, Unilever type of clients, right? So yes, just to answer your question, we do a broad spectrum for clients, and it's a need in this industry. Okay, hope that answers that question, right? I'm going to jump back a little bit to be caricature. Let's see. Okay, let me pull up. How do I add? Because there is this request to be in the live video. Caricature. Are you who I think you are? Anyway, let's try to pull you up. Okay. Anyway, before that works, I'm trying to enable that split screen video. Okay. That's Caitlin. All right. Caitlin, you can join in. And Cheryl can join in later too. Hey, wow. Your hair looks
Hello.
great.
My hair looks
Okay.
white, grey.
Your hair looks great.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, anyway. Caitlin graduated 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
She was one of my TC students like Cheryl. And maybe you want to say something about your work now?
Oh, so actually, I never thought I'd be working for a bank, but I am in DBS. And I guess, like, I don't know, I really miss uni, actually, DID. I always think about what I could have done better in terms of being more hardworking and stuff like that. And yeah, it's quite like, I think now looking back, I'm really thankful for like the training I got in the whole like design course. Hi Junho. Lol.
Yeah, so tell us more about that. Like or rather, like when you work now, what do you see as key things that you have gotten from your school time that is impacting you?
So I think like the largest difference, right, is in school actually we get a lot of like creative freedom in terms of we are challenged to think with like to really push boundaries. If your idea is crazy, you can entertain it and you don't really have to worry so much about how it's going to work. But I think like in the business world it's a bit different because at the end of the day you still have like stakeholders to answer to. But I guess it's about proposing many options that they haven't thought of before necessarily. So I think that's like quite a big difference between like working versus like being in school and taking ownership of your own project. Yeah.
Okay. And what is it about like tell us maybe a bit more like your time in school, right? Beyond just the learning, what makes you kind of like you say miss school, right?
So I think like one of it is definitely the community that's around you. So you get to learn like pretty quickly that like I think it took me a few years to realize that actually failing fast is like quite important because it's not about like getting stuff right. Like there's no right answer. You can like a problem can have multiple solutions and you just have to try to see which one's the best fit because you never know like until you try. So I think like I really took a risk with my own thesis. And I think like being surrounded by other people who are like risk takers or who like care about making a difference, being surrounded by these kind of people who are like more supportive and creative as well and to bounce off ideas. I think that's quite like a nice community to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yep, that's cool. And just to echo that a little, wait, let me find my charger. Where's my charger? Okay. Just to echo that a little, that's why I would say in DID, and I think some of you may have seen in the live chats, you could really witness the kind of relationship between the teacher and the student, right? Even just in dialogues like that, we still stay in touch. We still kind of like, it's as if you kind of work together before, it's less a bit like a teacher-student thing, but we are pushing boundaries together, and that happens amongst your peers. That happens also with your tutors. So I think that is something I personally like a lot about DID, right? I find that my students are a bit like my classmates. Yeah, sometimes. Okay. I'm going to do a small little thingy that someone was asking early on about. Do we do experiments and other things, right? Well, let me show you some things here. And Kelly, it's fine for you to stay on the.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine, right? Okay, so some of these things that are going on, you can see over here in our table here, right, are just things that we're playing with electronics. Because we're just trying to push boundaries somewhat, and sometimes you just have to got to build the things first. Here we're doing something where, it's a contraption to hit a ball when you kind of like blow at a sensor like that. We'll not say too much what is it for, but we are playing with some possibilities. And from things as complex as that to as simple as looking for opportunities like that. This was a little experiment built by one of our team members here who is an industrial design student who has a somewhat extreme flair in the area of electronics. Okay, don't get me wrong. Not all of you have to know and like these kind of things. In fact, most or maybe half the cohort doesn't play with electronics much, right? But here we have someone who likes that. Okay, and anyway, this is an interesting little experiment that's done outside of the context of projects, right? I'm going to turn it on, right? And let me see how do I show this to you best. Okay, let me put the. Okay, so basically what he has done, right, is he has done an LED light where when you blow at it, it turns off, and there is no sensor being used, right? That is what is really, really cool about this. I mean, it's easy to make something which detects your breath or sound or whatever, right? But this one, it goes off without a sensor. So that just means that, you know, you could technically do very, very simple or low cost electronics that use this kind of interactions, right? We don't know what this will lead to, but sometimes designers play with ideas like that first because it's like, hey, interesting possibility, found a new kind of way to deal with wires and the way wind passes them to cause this kind of behavior like I'm talking about, it goes off, right? And you can do this for like, what, 20 cents, right, in the end. And we don't know what this will lead us to, but we play with such things because we know that somewhere down the road, this can become something, okay? So, yeah, designers play with all kinds of stuff, even things like that. Just let me check here. Do we have Desiree in the call, or Cheryl? Are you still there? Can you wave or something like that so I can know? Because if you are in the call, then we can still talk to you. Okay, while you do that and figure that out first, right? I'm going to answer questions. This is a classic question. How do I know if I'm a good fit for ID? Well, I don't know. Yeah, to be frank, I don't know because I don't know you, right? But let's try to describe a little bit of what I think is a really excellent fit for ID type of person. Okay. Okay, let me open Cheryl so that she can answer this question too. How do I do that? Let's see. Okay, yep. Okay, so as Cheryl comes on, we're going to answer this question. I think for ID, you know, you have to like to be learning new things all the time, because design as a field, right, really thrives on solutions that are newly composed together, or solutions that are enabled by new change in technology, new change in materials, and new change in culture. So sometimes if people behave a new way, or if there's a new situation like the COVID-19 virus, right, there is a change that is happening. There's a new challenge that we face as humanity. You need to like that, like things are going to be shaken, and you know, you need to like that, like, hey, maybe because of change, there's something I can do to intervene. So therefore, a designer, one of the key characteristics is to be really curious and a good learner about many things. That's one. Then central to that, to be able to learn things well across different fields and to use it well, naturally you have to be good at both the sciences and the arts and integrating them back and forth, right? You need to be very much of a dreamer, but you also need to be very implementer oriented. That means you can experiment, you can make, you can figure out, right? So, well, why is a designer or innovator's characteristics sometimes a bit hard to come by? I mean, I'm not saying that we are too rare a breed, but it's harder to come by because I think we find more commonly that people are good at one area, right? Even our own designers, they have to kind of plug the other side or beef up the other, you know, aspect. So if you are generally very flexible, if you're thinking back and forth with serious and non-serious dream and actual experiments and detailed work, big picture and details, you know, arts and science, humanity, in terms of how people feel, how you can be sensitive to how people use things, how they perceive an object or space. At the same time, you are able to dive deep into the engineering to make things work, right? Or at least you need to know how to deal with engineers to collaborate together and make that happen. right, then I would say that makes a good kind of fit for DID candidate. Yeah, Cheryl, you want to chime in on that?
I want to correct your earlier statement about physics because I have not taken physics since I was 14 and I have not used it since. So no regrets dropping physics whatsoever. But yeah, so don't be afraid because you had to learn. You might have to take 1 or 2 like physics courses. They're basic, and I guess also with regards to learning, be prepared to learn things fast because I guess because of the span of the course, it's like a 13-week semester, right? You have to be prepared to pick up things like on the fly. It's like one project I was working on a wallet and I had to learn how to sew in the span of 2 weeks, right? So that I guess you just have to have the willingness to learn and also be prepared to change things on the fly. Be prepared to take criticisms and iterate on them. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and
much,
thanks
yeah.
for correcting me with the physics scare, right? You see, that's how we are like in school, actually. I mean, then Cheryl's no longer in school, but I think there's a lot of this back and forth. There's a lot of this openness to question each other, right? And yes, I think I may have misrepresented this whole physics thing. You need to know some, right? Okay, but you don't have to be you don't have to be in love with physics, right? Especially if you want to deal with objects that are physical. Yeah. But
I
then
guess
again,
mostly if you're dealing with physical. More so if you're dealing with physical stuff. More so if you're dealing with physical stuff. But like if in my case, like because I do mainly digital stuff, I mean we deal with the same kind of scenario. If it's not engineers, you're dealing with like developers, and they're also like, okay, how is whatever you're building like feasible with the tech today, and if it's not, like, how do we find the tech, or how do we iterate on the tech to make it something that we can build? Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's thanks for that. You can stay online first. Let's see if there's a question that we can answer together. All right, there's a lot of questions. Let me pick one, huh? There's so many, I don't know which one to do. Okay, I won't answer the one about how do you get your client set stuck, right? Because it's a bit irrelevant to the DID topic, right? We can do that some other day with another channel on Start Live, maybe, right? But there's a question here by Rain on... Who's this Rain? Okay, anyway, do I know this Rain? But anyway, yeah, on memorable projects. There are so many, you know. I'll just share a couple. Many of our projects are very memorable for us, right? And maybe I'll ask Cheryl to share a memorable project for her also, right? I would say early on I shared the Art Mouse. It was a memorable project for me because when it was very much in my own inclination type of work where I like to deal with some kind of unexpected mechanisms, right, and translate that to people's usage. That's what I like to do, and so part of my design work expresses itself that way, and it's also memorable because it was done when I was somewhat of a trainee in a company that I joined, and I think it was my first week on the job where this project came and I proposed a solution like that. Of course, I got a job after that, right? So because it was a bit like, okay, you know, you're new and you're wondering like, what can I really do? Can my idea really have an impact? But you just believe in it. You went to just make it and you just put it on the table. And when companies, client like Microsoft, they saw it, they say, we'll make this into the mouse, right? Because this is exactly what they were looking for, right? So that was very memorable for me because it was a period of somewhat like uncertainty, being new in a place, yet not sure whether like the thing I put out there is of any worth, though I believed in it. So that was for me very memorable. There are other memorable projects that we have done at Start that most of the time, because we dive into it with a little bit of uncertainty as to whether we know how to do it, right? And one example is when we first did our very first app project, when that was like about 8 years ago. At that point in time, UI UX and all these things about interaction design or usability or user experience is not really a thing yet. It's not really a word yet even. Nobody's teaching such things in school, right? But as designers, we saw the way design is moving, and you need to, everything that you do starts to need to have an interface. You need to be able to do apps, and so we just kind of took a project on, pretended that we could really know how to do it, and then trusted that our training and our learning ability was quick enough to figure it out. And I think that became one of our most successful projects so far, even in the past 8 years. And then that led on to many more projects and interfaces. We now in our own team have our own interface designers, and we even have programmers, right, in the team. But that comes because we were kind of willing to just say, okay, design will probably be able to figure it out, learn how to do something new, and let's just do it. Because if we don't, actually, there's nobody else who's doing it also, right? Everyone is new to it. There are instances like that for our mask project. The Air Plus mask that we showed you early on. When we first dealt with it, none of us in the team really dealt with a soft good product before that sat on your face. We were like, shit, can we really do this? We've never, how do we even do a 3D model in CAD that is like a face, or to start with, right? And how do we CAD meaning like do a 3D build in digital space, right? On something that is soft and there's no like shape to really define it, right? It was completely new for us. We were scared to take it, but we still took it. And then that turned out to be one of our best projects, which won so much awards, and we learned so much from. Similarly, there are a few other projects in this space in the last few years where we were doing airplane seats. Again, the first project was also like, oh gosh, can we really handle an airplane seat, right? Engineering-wise and structure-wise, it's so complex. But when we've done it the first time, then the second, third, fourth time is kind of like, oh, so that's how to do it, I think for us, it's memorable when we learn, go into new areas, right? That's what happens. And Cheryl, over to you on this. Memorable projects can be from school or from work,
I'll answer more based on school because I guess this is for prospective students. I guess one of maybe memorable project for me was in my third year. I did a collaboration with DBS. We were like just tasked to redesign a branch that we were assigned to, and I think I didn't realize like it's the repercussions of it in the long run, as we were interviewing. We were just interviewing customers, the bank branch staff, like asking them like how things work today, how in this branch specifically, like how are you guys using the space, how should we use it better and whatnot. And I guess the memorable part came like realizing only after like we had to do like presentations to like this upper management involved with the bank branches with consumer banking, and later by chance, in an unrelated series of events, I was interning in their customer experience team, and I just had to go down to that specific branch like a few months later, and I was looking and I was like, wait, this is the design we proposed to them. This is exactly like this is. It was changed a bit. We were like, oh, like I did not realize like my tiny little school project could become something big, could be something implementable until like I really saw it like with my own eyes. I was like, huh, yeah. So I think it was nice. It's realizing like how relevant your what you learn and what you create become. It's heartwarming in a sense. I can feel like, oh look, my thing is now out there. I guess that would be the same with like any kind of market related product, or like even these sort of small little implementations. You don't realize it's overreaching like far until when you see it with your own eyes and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's great sharing, and inspires me to share a little bit about yeah, really why I would say design is feels always so relevant and so timely, right? I mean, to answer the same question on these memorable projects, right? Uh, Actually, it happened recently where I went to Japan with my family, right? And if you check out Stark's Instagram or the some of the posts which were shared even by NUS, right? One of the things that was the most surprising was how my own kids were wearing the mask that we designed. And I think that if you like to see your work actually come to human impact, and sometimes by people around you, they use it and you see the reaction. If you like that kind of experience, then design type of careers are very suitable because yeah, every time you put out something, it's a bit like an experiment. Like you can think and figure out how this should work or could work, right? And then you think that it'd be great for people, but the moment you put it into people's hands, right, that's when the rubber meets the road. Do they really use it like the way you envision it? Do they benefit from it the way you envision it to be, right? I think that's that eternal kind of puzzle, which is like constantly interesting to solve and interesting to kind of like watch. So yeah, design, like Cheryl said, a project done almost like an internship or even in school that gets actually picked on by an organization to do, even when they don't tell you that they're doing it, right? And then you see it happen. Always surprises you. Yeah. Okay. Let me just let me close this question first, and let's see if we can pull up another question. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, sorry. Yeah, these are some of the funny drawings by people in the team when they have free time. What's this question about? I'm not super sure. What's this 8-page limit question set last year? Anyone knows what's this about? Cheryl, you know what's this about?
No idea.
No idea, right? Yeah, sorry, I have no idea. I'm not sure what this is about. If you can clarify, maybe clarify with another question. Yeah.
Junho's in here getting shoutouts whenever he can.
Okay. Yeah, exhausted lunatic. Oh yeah, it's you again, right? It's yesterday you were here, right? Or the day before you were here. So yeah, okay. Meanwhile, the portfolio pages maximum limit. Well, the one for submission, I think if the rule is to stick with 8 pages, then stick with 8 pages. But of course, when you come in person, if there is an in-person interview, right? There's no limit to what you can bring. You can bring you want to come in a costume. You can do that too. So, I mean, whatever yeah. I think the 8 pages limit is just to keep things a little bit more sane, right? When we receive it, right? And it's just really the first kind of way to get you in through the door for an interview. And I think once you get in through the interview, just bring whatever you want, right? You want to bring a 500-page thing, just bring it. Yeah. Hope that answers your question.
Oh, that's for interviews. I don't remember the limit online. I don't have an art background, so yeah, I don't know. My own experience with the interview was, I think, because at that point, the grade limit was a bit lower, and I was just like, I'm not gonna get into Archi, so why don't I try for this? And I didn't have an art background. I was a bio kid in JC, so like zero relevance to this course. Whatever I studied before had zero relevance to whatever I had. When I came with like a really shitty sketchbook of like things I like put together like last minute because I had nothing to show as a science kid. But yeah, like I just went there. I think I wrote more than I drew. But I just stuck to what was kind of instructed, in the sense like really thinking about why things are created, who they're created for, and also constantly asking yourself, how can something be better? Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what's this? Sorry,
Oh.
sorry. What's that?
Mm.
What's this? Just a second.
Question. No idea.
Yeah, what's that? Just a second, huh? Yeah, ignore that. I don't know why that's coming up on the screen. Okay, so let's see if there's another question. I have no idea how to get rid of that thing.
We have 5 more minutes.
Yeah, we have 5 more minutes, right? Well, we don't have any burning questions. Does Kelly want to come back on? Is there anyone else that is? Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe if not, then I show something. This is the exact picture of my kids using the mask that we designed 2 weeks ago. You can see, right? This is in Japan, and this was new version of the Air Plus mask that. I mean, you've seen one that's been around for a few years, but then this is another one that is even this one requires the age limit to go down to as young as 3 years old, which is very difficult to solve. So yeah, having the chance to do a project which your own children are wearing, it's quite something. Yeah, right. Apart from yeah, and of course the mouse that I did. Sometimes you see my own teachers in the past using it. I mean, to be honest, one of the things I always find quite nice to see, if you have ever spoken to, say, Dr. Yen, right, on this live chats. Dr. Yen was my, who's a teacher still now at DID. He was my teacher when in fact, my TC supervisor when I was studying in NUS in the past. And coming back from the States after working there somewhat, seeing him use the mouse that I was that I worked on was quite nice, right? So yeah, there are some of these moments. Okay. Anything else? Anyone? If not, we are left with 3 minutes, and we can kind of almost end it. Yeah, in a bit. Let me see if I can show you any more things around over here. Is there any other things that are interesting? Okay, let's see. Maybe I pick one question that is that has been asked by AJ for Cheryl to answer. Yeah.
Okay.
What is your fondest memory of school?
I jokingly told her it was eating Amin at 2 a.m. But I shan't scare people. Those memories are, I think, okay, as much as I don't want to scare people about with like, oh yeah, you guys do all late nights and stuff. I'm pretty sure the culture has changed a bit. It's been like 6 years. It's been several years.
Only a bit,
but hopefully it's changed. But at that time, I guess fondest memories are really like being stuck with such a close community of people. Like as much as they used to tout like that our batch was like super competitive and we hated each other or something, we were like yes, that too. Finding a dog and keeping it in the studio. That happened once.
Oh my goodness. I didn't hear that. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, it was, I guess, like being able to spend it with people who like are all like learning the same things, or like at least all striving towards the same thing. And it's something, I don't really know how to describe it. It's just it's a very close community that I feel like I might not have gotten with like any other faculties, just because of the amount of time that we spent working on coursework.
I don't know if you guys are still here, but yeah. We got cut off because there's a 1 hour limit on Instagram, right? So Cheryl was halfway through her answer. Yeah, I don't know if people are still here, but anyway, we can at least answer this question, right? And then let Cheryl finish before we cut. Where's Cheryl? Yeah. We don't have to finish it also, right? Anyway. It just seemed that... Okay, yeah, Cheryl's back. Let's... She's coming in.
Okay.
Hey! Yeah. So you can finish the very last bit of the question and then we can close.
It's just like fun times with friends that I think it's hard to replicate if you're like not gonna be staying in a hall or you're just gonna be like or you're not gonna be in a hall or RC or whatever, like yeah.
Okay, so you're done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there was just a question that I thought was interesting to answer, but I think the asker is not here anymore, right? In case you guys to watch this video, but there's a Douglas Ong who was asking whether if you have a portfolio but your IGP is not enough, can you still get an interview, right? I would just say that of course I don't know how far off your IGP is, but there's a good chance to just appeal, right? Put ID as the first choice so that the appeal is more reasonable, right? And if you do get to come to the interview, then your interview will have a lot more weightage than your IGP will ever matter. Okay, so if you do have a portfolio and you really like to come to ID, I encourage you to appeal. Okay. Okay, that's about it, right? We've crossed the 1 hour segment anyway, and I think most people have dropped off. Okay, so stay tuned for the next one that will come from the department. Oh, Douglas is here now, right? I just saw Douglas coming in. So Douglas, we answered your question. I'm not sure if you need to hear it again. You can watch it again, but anyway, Douglas, in short, appeal, right? Because if your IGP falls below the cutoff, then the only way that you might get the interview is to appeal, right? And when you do that, please put ID as first choice. And then when you if you do get to come for the interview, then your portfolio or what you do at the interview will matter far more than your actual grades, right? In fact, I think it almost exclusively matters only the interview. Yeah, if you do get to the interview. All right. That's it. Goodbye, everyone. Wash your hands. Bye.